To trade or not to trade? What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Guitar Gear Trader. I am Steve, coming at you as always from Nashville, Tennessee. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, if you celebrate it here in the States. If not, I hope you had a great Thursday. Hope everyone had a fruitful Black Friday. Maybe some of you got some really good deals. I didn't do any shopping because I have a dilemma, and I want to talk to you about that dilemma today. But before we get into that dilemma, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share the video with your friends, tell people to watch the channel. Follow me on Instagram at Guitar Gear Trader. So let's talk about Black Friday deals first and foremost. Did anybody get anything good? Tell me in the comments below if you got something good. I was looking all over the place. Musician's Friend had a deal of the hour, and every hour there was a new stupid deal of the day. Nothing really tickled my fancy too much. There was a set of powered monitors that I was thinking about getting because my band is thinking about buying our own sound system instead of hiring people to do our sound, which is, 1/6 of the band's pay for the night has to go to that individual. So we were thinking about getting our own stuff so that we can, make a little bit more money at the end of the night. So I was thinking about buying a set of speakers, but a buddy of mine said they didn't get great reviews. So I passed on those. GibsonGuitar.com or Gibson.com had some really good deals if you were looking for very specific stuff. They had a whole bunch of like 335 style guitars in weird colors. They had a whole bunch of Les Pauls in weird colors, weird finishes. If you were into that, or if you were looking for a very specific thing, or if you didn't care about the color very much, but just wanted a good price on a really good guitar, Gibson had some cool stuff, and I think they still do. So if you're watching this, it's Friday the 28th. You'll probably get some good deals up and through Monday, which is Cyber Monday. Sweetwater, they had a ton of PRS guitars on sale, like $1,000 cheaper than the retail price. A lot of those semi-hollow, I think they call them studios. They used to be called like 408s back in the day. I had a 408. It was like a 3 pickup configuration. Actually, maybe the 408 was a 2 pickup configuration. The studio one that they're selling now is a 3 pickup configuration. I've never played one, but they have the hollow body ones with the piezo pickup in it, and they're on sale for like $1,000 less than normal. So if you're looking for one of those, you can grab one of those on Sweetwater right now for a good price. I was scrolling. I didn't really get to the Gibsons or the Fenders too much. And the reason I wasn't really looking is because I went to Dollywood for Thanksgiving break down here in Tennessee in the South. And you don't just get Thursday and Friday off for Thanksgiving like you do up north. When I lived in New York, we only got Thursday and Friday off for Thanksgiving, and then you had the long weekend, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. When I moved down here to Tennessee, everywhere in the South gets the whole week off for Thanksgiving. So ever since we found that out, we decided to make like little family trips. The beginning of the week, we'd come back for Thanksgiving and then spend the rest of the week at home. So we've made it like a tradition to go to Dollywood over in Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Tennessee, which is about 3.5 hours. The way I drive, I make it there in about 3:15. We spend a couple of days at Dolly Parton's hotels. It's really, really nice. The parks are really cool and really clean. The rides are really good, and we have a great old time. While I'm there, I always hit up a store called the Music Outlet. I don't know the name of the street that it's on, but it's the main street that brings you into Pigeon Forge whenever you go into, go to Dollywood or into that area. It's a real touristy area. And it looks like it looks like an old school building, or maybe like a really big bank. Doesn't look like a guitar shop at all. But when you get close to it, there are two giant like fake guitars, like near the doors. And that's the only way you would know that it's a guitar shop. And every year I go there. Every single year I stop by for the past 5-6 years now. And I go in and I check stuff out. And they have a really amazing selection of acoustic guitars. That's like their bread and butter. They have amazing Martins. They have a whole room full of really, really high-end, new, used, vintage Martin guitars. Anything you want Martin, this place has it. It has those really fancy inlaid Martins with like the American Indians on them, the Native Americans on them, or the ducks, or all the really fancy Martins. But they also have the triple O's and the D35s and D28s and D18s. They also have vintage ones from like the 50s and 60s, and I think they might have had one from pre-war one, which is like the holy grail of Martins. They also have Gibson acoustics as well, not as much of a selection as the Martin ones, but they do have some Gibson acoustics. They have some new ones. They have some Doves and Hummingbirds and J45s, but they also do some used stuff. And I go there for the used stuff. I always go there to check out to see what they have used, because new stuff is, to me, not that I don't like new stuff. I love new stuff. It's just so much of a price difference from something used to something new. And in my opinion, the guitars are the same or not better on the used market as they are new. You can go on Facebook Marketplace, you can go on Craigslist, you can go on, Reverb, and you can find a Les Paul Standard, or a Hummingbird, or a Stratocaster or a Telecaster that's 2, 3, 4 years old. That's going to be almost half price as a new one, and there's nothing wrong with those used ones. Maybe they need a setup. Maybe the person that's selling them didn't like the color. Maybe they didn't like the pickups. They're not able to alter it or modify it and change the pickups. Maybe they don't want to deal with stuff like that. They don't want to pay for it. And they just rather find something that's already set up the way they like it and get that, and then get rid of the thing that they bought that they're not really jiving with. But one man's treasure is another man's, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So somebody might not like a guitar, but it might be perfect for you. Or maybe you can tweak it in a way, and you don't mind tweaking it in a way that would be perfect for you. So I go in there a lot for the used stuff. They have one glass case that has the really, really high-end stuff in it. And when I went there about 4 years ago, behind the counter, wasn't in the glass case yet, it was behind the counter, was a Les Paul Junior. For those of you who don't know, Les Paul Juniors were basically like student guitars back in the 50s and 60s. They were Les Paul bodies. Actually, I have something similar right here. Let me grab it. So this is a Les Paul Special, okay? And they call this a double cut. Okay, so it has two cutouts. A Les Paul Junior is going to have a single cut, so this would be wood. Nope, this would be wood. Okay, and you'd have the single cutout here. And a Junior is going to have one P90 pickup, most likely a dog ear pickup. These are called soap bar P90s. It's the same pickup, just a different case. That's no difference. This is just a regular square case, where the soap bars are metal cases. This is plastic, and they bolt directly into the top of the guitar, where these kind of just sit in the cavity. Okay, this is called a special because it has two pickups. Okay, so you can get a single cut special, where you'd have just the regular Les Paul body shape, and it's a solid mahogany body, no maple top. Okay, it's just mahogany neck, mahogany body. And the Junior has one P90, and the Special has two P90s. That's the only difference between a Special and a Junior. So this would be a double cut Special, and this is a 1977 double cut Special. I traded a 75 or 76 Gretsch for this guitar. I think it was really, really worth it. This guitar rips. It really is amazing. It had a neck break. I don't know if you can see it. You really can't see it too bad, but there is a neck break right around there, right? Yeah, you might be able to see it there. Right around there is a little neck break. And this guitar got fixed. The owner that I bought it from or traded from said that this guitar was fixed like 10, 12 years ago. It's a 1977, and it's been fine ever since. And to be honest, I'm not afraid of buying stuff that's been repaired, and you shouldn't either. A lot of times, the glue that holds these things together are strong, make it stronger than it was before. So don't be scared of that. And it makes it even cheaper than normal. But I traded an older Gretsch. It was a really nice Gretsch, but we're going to see that Gretsches kind of don't hold their value as good as Gibsons. And they don't give you exactly what Gibson's going to give you as far as tone goes. So in that store, there was a 1956, somewhat original Les Paul Junior. And if you ever watch the collection, the Gibson show on YouTube that Mark Agnesi does, every single person that he interviews has 5, 6, or 7 of these Les Paul Juniors. 6, 7 years ago, you probably could have got them for like $2,000-$3,000, and now they're skyrocketing $5, $6, $7, $8,000, $10,000, $14,000. You look on Reverb, depending on the year, they're out of control. So 5 years ago, I saw one of these at this shop, the Music Outlet in Pigeon Forge, and I put it through a Fender, maybe Deluxe Reverb or Princeton, whatever it was, sitting there. It was an old Fender amp, 70s Fender amp. I cranked it up, and this thing just roared, and it was set up nice, and it felt great. It was really heavily aged and checked, but it just had a great feel to it. And I look at the price tag, and from what I remember, I'm probably wrong, but from what I remember, I thought it was $5,500. And at the time, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for what used to be a student guitar. It was the cheapest guitar Gibson sold, or one of the cheapest guitars Gibson sold. They sold it to kids who were learning how to play. They sold the standards and the customs to, people who had the money for it, and they sold the juniors to kids, and that's what kids got to learn on. And nowadays they're just skyrocketing, but they sound great. They don't sound like guitars that today you would give a kid to learn on, right? My first guitar that I ever learned on was like a PV Stratocaster copy. And that thing probably, I don't remember necessarily how it sounded, if it was good or bad at the time. It was many years ago. But I would assume it's not going to sound as good as an American Standard Tele or American Standard Strat, the expensive version of what it was. But these guitars back in the day, these student guitars, these, Fender Mustangs and things like that, and these Les Paul Juniors and SG Juniors and Specials, they were really well-made, handcrafted guitars in the U.S. And they were made with Gibson parts, that were in all the other types of Gibson guitars. So they weren't cheap parts, and they weren't cheaply made. They were made very well. So every year I go back, and every year I play this guitar because it hasn't sold yet. It's been 6 years, and it's been sitting in the store. Well, I go back this year, and I say, hey, you still got that Junior in there? And he goes, yeah, we still got it. And it's like I said, it's a 56. It doesn't have the original case. It doesn't have the original tuners. It has repro tuners that are era correct, the little white bean, kidney bean tuners. And it's missing 2 fret markers. So it has dot fret markers. It's missing 2 of the fret markers. So all of those things take money off of the price of this guitar. If it was an all original 1956 mint condition Les Paul Junior, I think Gibson themselves would ask for about $15,000. If we go on their website, we can see right here they have a certified vintage 1954 Les Paul Junior, and they're asking $15,000. Now, if we click on it, we can see that it's in very good shape, right? There's some wear here. It's a very old guitar, 70-something years old guitar. But for the most part, it's in pretty good shape. It has all the fret markers on the fretboard. I don't know if the tuners are original, but I'm sure the wiring harness is original. Everything's error correct on this thing. The tuners look original. I don't know. We can look in the description. It has a case. Not sure if that case was the original case, but let's see what it says. Here's the wiring harness. That looks original. Got some rash from the hanger, but overall, this thing looks pretty good. The one I was looking at in the store was a little bit, beat up. Okay, so it wasn't. They weren't asking for $15,000. So let's see. This 1954 Gibson Junior is a standout first-year example. That's the first year. Okay. No frills, solid body workhorse. Originally shipped on October 29th, 1954. The original short bridge bushings, known to lean over time, were replaced. So the bushings were replaced, which is fine because it's going to stabilize it even better. The white button tips on the original Clusons were replaced. Okay, so these white buttons were replaced with newer white buttons. I don't know if they were aged on purpose. Comes with a new lifting case. So the case isn't original. Okay, so no, not original case. Replaced tuners. Some lacquer overspray. They're asking $15,000. They were asking for this guitar in the store that I was at. They were asking for $8,000. I thought I remembered it being $5,500 4 years ago. Could that have inflated over the years? Yes. I asked the gentleman behind the counter, Dave, and he said it's always been $8,000. He said there is a little bit of wiggle room. He's like, he got his book out. He said we can do 77, but then he's going to charge me Tennessee sales tax because I live in Tennessee, which is 9 3/4. So it's like 10% sales tax. So that's another $700-800 on top of the price of the guitar. So I said to him, listen, I am willing to offer you $6,000 for this guitar. He's like, all right, let me call the guy and I'll get back to you. Well, a couple hours later, he calls me back, and I was crapping my pants because I don't necessarily have $6,000 at the moment to spend on a guitar. So I thought he was calling me to tell me, yeah, he took the offer. So now he's doing it on consignment. That's why I forgot to mention that. He's selling this on consignment. It's not their guitar. So they have to make a profit off it. So if you don't know what consignment is, you can walk into a music store and say, I want to rent some space on the wall, put my guitar up there, I want you to sell it for me. And they take a percentage. They take 10, 15, 20%, whatever you agree upon when you do it. So they're probably taking 10 to 20% consignment on this guitar. So they want to sell it for more as well. They don't want to, give big discounts because they want to make their money too. Looking online, looking on Reverb, these guitars, 56 Les Paul Juniors, are ranging anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000. That's what they're asking for. Don't know if that's what they're selling for. I didn't look at sold listings, but right now people are asking between $8,000 and $14,000. I didn't see any online that were missing fret markers or anything like that. So I think 8 or less, slightly less, is a reasonable price for these guitars. I also think that the used guitar market is going down a little bit for certain guitars. Maybe the Juniors aren't one of the guitars that are decreasing in value or decreasing in price, but I can tell you there are lots of guitars that are dropping in price. 70s Fenders dropping in price drastically. Gretches, vintage Gretches, dropping in price drastically. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I don't know if this model this year is going to be going down anytime soon. So he calls me up and he's like, he said the best he can do is 7,200. And I'm like, all right. And I was like, I can't get 7. I was willing to go up a little bit, right? I don't mind splitting the difference with somebody. Somebody asks for 8, I ask for 6. I kind of expect him to try to meet me in the middle somewhere. So he came back with 72, which is pretty close to 7. So I was like, all right, well, I can't get you cash right now, but I don't mind driving back. The guitar's been sitting on the wall for 4 years, 5 years that I've been coming to your store. I'm not really worried that it's going to sell in the meantime. And he goes, well, that's $7,200 before tax. So he's like, it's going to be another $720 in tax just about. And that's when I was like, now we're back to $8,000, and I don't have $8,000. I wanted to give you 6. So I have not stopped thinking about that guitar since I got home 3 days ago. So I'm looking around the room and I'm like, what could I sell that I would not be mad about because I'm getting a 56 Les Paul Junior, right? That would be what I would be replacing stuff with. So on the wall behind me is all my Beatles stuff. Now, I'm a big Beatles fan. I love the Beatles. But I don't play any Beatles songs. I don't play in a Beatle band. I don't sit on the couch and strum Beatles songs. I just don't do it. I don't play through any of these clean amps, this Vox, that Fender. I don't play through them. I play through all the heavy stuff that's on that rack. I play through that Orange, that Bogner, the Friedmans. Okay, that's what I'm, and the Ampliphonics and Gain up there, the Amplified Nation. Those are the things I play through. That's the stuff I enjoy playing. That's the stuff I'm good at playing. That's the stuff I play in my band. I don't sit here and try to replicate Beatles songs. I love the band. I love the music. I listen to them all the time. I have all their records on vinyl, like original ones. But it's not something I sit here and I play. So I have, like I said, I have quite a bit of a Beatle collection. And there are some that I won't get rid of. I won't get rid of that 325 Rickenbacker because I'm a John Lennon fan. Out of all the Beatles, John was my favorite. So I want to keep my John guitars. I have that 325. I have a Gibson J160E, the acoustic that he played. And I have an ES330 Gibson, which is basically a casino. I have all the John guitars I want. I have my Hofner Beatle bass, which is like $300, wouldn't even be worth selling. But I got the Paul bass there. And that Rickenbacker 12-string is what I think of when I think of George. When I think of George, I think of that guitar. But I also think of George when I play this. This is an original 1964 Tennessean 6119 Gretsch. If anybody knows anything about 60s Gretsches, to have a guitar with the binding completely intact on a 60s Gretsch is almost unheard of. This binding that they used in the 60s tended to rot and fall out of the guitar. These are not that, it's crazy because these are not that much money. They're just not that much money. You can get a new one made in Japan for the same price that you can get a 1964 all original one, which in my brain doesn't make any sense, and that's why I snatched it up. I got it for like $2,500, which is, you can get a new one on Facebook for like $17, brand new from Japan, and I gotta say they sound great, the new ones, maybe even better, because like, I love to strum this guitar. I have flat wounds on it. But they don't sound great. They sound like if you went back to Beatles records. It's got a great Bigsby though. If you go back to Beatles records and you isolate the guitar tracks don't sound great. There's no getting around it. I don't know what it is about the mix that makes them sound so amazing and makes them sound so unforgettable. But if you take apart the guitar tracks, that little Rickenbacker, that sounds like crap by itself on those recordings. George sounds wonderful. George always sounded wonderful. But it's not an amazing sounding guitar. But everyone in the 60s had them, right? Everyone was playing guitars like this. So that Rickenbacker 12-string, which also is a Tom Petty guitar, which it does a thing, and that Rickenbacker I would never get rid of. And I thought I would never want to get rid of one of these once I got a 60s one. I've had a whole bunch of the new Japanese ones, and I've sold them all. Every time I got them, I sold them. I probably had 3 or 4 of those. But once I had the 60s one, I was like, I'm never going to sell this. And this one's going to be hard for me. This one will be hard for me to sell. On the other hand, I have another 1964 Gretsch. This is a 6120 Chet Atkins model. Now you might be saying to yourself, that's not a Beatles guitar. John, there's a picture of John playing one of these. There's one picture of John playing one of these for one song. I forget what song it is. I'm sure people will tell me in the comments below. But there is a famous picture of John, I'll try to put it on the screen, playing one of these guitars in the studio. And again, this guitar sounds better than the 6119, than the Tennessean. When you plug it in, this one has a lot more life because it has the Filtertron pickups. And this guitar, it doesn't sound great in an amp. I put them through the Voxes, I put them through an AC30, I put them through a deluxe reverb, and it's just not my jam. It's just not my thing. And this one sounds better, but it's not great either, to really be honest with you. The newer ones sound way better. And I don't know if it's the flat wounds on it. Maybe if I put round wounds on it, it'll sound a little bit more for like what I want. I want it to sound like the Cult, and it just doesn't. My White Falcon does. I have a 70s White Falcon. This Bigsby is the best Bigsby I've ever played. Love that Bigsby. But it's really cool. It's got some things wrong with it. It's missing the plate on the headstock. That's number one. There's usually like a plate on here, a gold plate. Someone must have had this routed for like stereo, and then they put it back to mono. Behind here, there's supposed to be a piece of plastic that covers that hole. That's gone. And this mute doesn't function. It's locked in place. They've done it. They've made it so it's locked in place so that it doesn't work. I paid more for this one than I did the 6119. I think I can get more money for this one. So I'd be willing to sell this one before I would be willing to sell the Tennessean. Also because it says Tennessean on it, and I live in Tennessee. And I don't know about, there's just something about that makes me want to keep it. But I gotta be honest, like this is probably the worst sounding guitar I own. Now that doesn't mean it's the worst sounding guitar in the world. It just means out of this room of amazing guitars, this is probably the last one I'm gonna pick up and plug in. I like strumming it on the couch. I might put the round wounds on it because these flat ones just make it sound so dead. And I gotta say the same thing with a lot of my Rickenbackers. I plug in a lot of my Ricks because I'm a big Tom Petty fan, and I'll play Tom Petty songs on my Rickenbackers, and they don't sound great plugged in either. Here's a Rick 360. Sounds really cool not plugged in, but once you plug it in, it just doesn't. It does one thing. They're one-trick ponies. They look so cool though, man. These are some of the prettiest guitars ever made, in my opinion. But what I'm thinking about selling both Gretsches to get at least half the money for the Les Paul Junior, and that's what I want your advice about, because I could sell those two guitars. Maybe get about $4,000 for them because they've went down in price since I've gotten them. I can do one of two things. I could sell these two guitars, hopefully get $4,000 to $5,000 for them, both. Take that money, put it towards the Les Paul Junior. Or, option number two, I can go to Gibson's Custom Shop. Where is she? Gibson's Custom Shop has a 57 heavily aged, like Murphy Lab, for $6,500 plus tax, which would be about the same price as the one from 1956. And it would be brand new from the custom shop. It's going to sound great, but it's not a 56, right? Or option number three is this model. It's a 1957 reissue from the custom shop. It's just not aged, it's not Murphy Labbed, and it's $4,000, right? I can get that from the custom shop. But part of me is like, you're buying a student guitar for $4,000. I don't mind if it's, something in me doesn't mind if it's vintage, but something in me minds if it's new. Now, there's a guy on Facebook that is selling a white custom shop Les Paul Junior, and he wants $2,900. I think I can get him down to $2,500. But again, I'm buying a student-based guitar. These things rip. They're awesome. They're unbelievable. For $2,500, and I'm getting rid of a vintage Beatle model-ish guitar. Remember, they're not, they weren't endorsed by the Beatles. The Beatles don't have signature models of these two guitars, but they might as well have. When you think of George Harrison and you look at pictures of George, this is the one he's playing, right? This is the guitar he has in his, one of them. This and the Country Gentleman. I don't have a Country Gentleman. Okay. Fun fact, this is a Country Gentleman, but it's about 2 inches narrower. If you make the lower bout of this guitar about an inch bigger on each side, that's a Country Gentleman. Same guitar. Fun fact for you. So, what do you think I should do? I'm kind of torn. I don't have any more room on my credit cards. I can't do that. My wife will kill me if I take out of the savings, so I'm not going to do that. So my only options are to either sell stuff to get enough money to buy it. And I have to bargain with this guy a lot. I have to call him up and be like, listen, this guitar hasn't moved in 4 years. No one's interested in it. He told me that I've had the highest offer ever on the guitar. So I think that was a little bit of a hint to say maybe we should strong arm this guy a little more. If $6,000 was the best offer he's ever gotten, he might be willing to come down a little bit. I might have to say, listen, 7 is my ceiling with tax. I can't pay any. I have $7,000, and that's what I'm giving you for this guitar, and that's it. I can't do any more. I'll come pick it up. I'll drive 3.5 hours to come get it, so I can save on the shipping and see what he says to me. But I still need the money for it. Now, I would be willing to sell that 1977 Les Paul Special, because at least I'll be replacing it with a vintage Les Paul Junior. So I wouldn't feel bad about that. But I wouldn't feel bad about the orange 6120. I will feel bad about the Tennessean. That one I will feel bad about. So let me know what you think in the comments. This weekend I'm going to a guitar show at the East Side Bowl here in Nashville. They had the first one ever last year. This is the second annual one. I'm going to bring these 2 guitars with me. There's a guy there who I've dealt with before who said he'd give me, cash for it, for both of them. Not a great price. I don't even want to tell you because you probably wouldn't be happy with me. It would basically be, I would basically be losing one of these guitars completely to him. I would get the money back for one and just be giving him the other one, which would absolutely break my heart. But then you start thinking about what could I do with $4,000? I can either put it towards that 56, or I can buy a custom shop Les Paul. Right? I can buy a vintage Les Paul custom shop, off Facebook Marketplace in a heartbeat with $4,000. So it's one of those decisions. So what would you do? What should I do? Should I do anything? Should I just forget about it? Right? How good could it be? How good could that old 56 be? Just keep these guitars. Like, what's the difference between a